and save the Christian from the poorhouse. Trade after trade was taken away from the Jew by statute, till practically none was left. He was forbidden to engage in agriculture, he was forbidden to practice law, he was forbidden to practice medicine, except among Jews, he was forbidden the handicrafts. Even the seats of learning and the schools of science had to be closed against this tremendous antagonist. Still, almost bereft of employments, he found ways to make money, even ways to get rich. Also ways to invest his takings well, for usury was not denied him. In the hard conditions suggested, the Jew without brains could not survive, and the Jew with brains had to keep them in good training and well sharpened up, or starve. Ages of restriction to the one tool which the law was not able to take from him, his brain, have made that tool singularly competent. Ages of compulsory disuse of his hands have atrophied them, and he never uses them now. This history has a very, very commercial look, a most sordid and practical commercial look, the business aspect of a Chinese cheap labor crusade. Religious prejudices may account for one part of it, but not for the other 9. Protestants have persecuted Catholics, but they did not take their livelihoods away from them. The Catholics have persecuted the Protestants with bloody and awful bitterness, but they never closed agriculture and handicrafts against them. Why was that? That has the candid look of genuine religious persecution, not a trade union boycott in a religious dispute. The Jews are harried and obstructed in Austria and Germany, and lately in France, but England and America give them an open field and yet survive. Scotland offers them an unembarrassed field, too, but there are not many takers. There are a few Jews in Glasgow, and one in Aberdeen, but that is because they can't earn enough to get away. The Scotch pay themselves that compliment, but it is authentic. I feel convinced that the crucifixion has not much to do with the world's attitude toward the Jew, that the reasons for it are older than that event, as suggested by Egypt's experience and by Rome's regret for having persecuted an unknown quantity called a Christian, under the mistaken impression that she was merely persecuting a Jew. Merely a Jew, a skinned eel who was used to it, presumably. I am persuaded that in Russia, Austria, and Germany, 9/10 of the hostility to the Jew comes from the average Christian's inability to compete successfully with the average Jew in business, in either straight business or the questionable sort. In Berlin, a few years ago, I read a speech which frankly urged the expulsion of the Jews from Germany, and the agitator's reason was as frank as his proposition. It was this: that 85% of the successful lawyers of Berlin were Jews, and that about the same percentage of the great and lucrative businesses of all sorts in Germany were in the hands of the Jewish race. Isn't it an amazing confession? It was but another way of saying that in a population of 48 million, of whom only 500,000 were registered as Jews, 85% of the brains and honesty of the whole was lodged in the Jews. I must insist upon the honesty. It is an essential of successful business, taken by and large. Of course it does not rule out rascals entirely, even among Christians, but it is a good working rule nevertheless. The speaker's figures may have been inexact, but the motive of persecution stands out as clear as day. The man claimed that in Berlin the banks, the newspapers, the theaters, the great mercantile, shipping, mining, and manufacturing interests, the big army and city contracts, the tramways, and pretty much all properties of high value, and also the small businesses, were in the hands of the Jews. He said the Jew was pushing the Christians to the wall all along the line, that it was all a Christian could do to scrape together a living, and that the Jew must be banished, and soon. There was no other way of saving the Christian. Here in Vienna, last autumn, an agitator said that all these disastrous details were true of Austria-Hungary also, and in fierce language he demanded the expulsion of the Jews. When politicians come out without a blush and read the baby act in this frank way, unrebuked, it is a very good indication that they have a market back of them, and know where to fish for votes. You note the crucial point of the mentioned agitation. The argument is that the Christian cannot compete with the Jew, and that hence his very bread is in peril. To human beings this is a much more hate-inspiring thing than is any detail connected with religion. With most people, of a necessity, bread and meat take first rank, religion second. I am convinced that the persecution of the Jew is not due in any large degree to religious prejudice. No, the Jew is a money-getter, and in getting his money he is a very serious obstruction to less capable neighbors who are on the same quest. I think that that is the trouble. In estimating worldly value the Jew is not shallow, but deep. With precocious wisdom he found out in the morning of time that some men worship rank, some worship heroes, some worship power, some worship God, and that over these ideals they dispute and cannot unite, but that they all worship money. So he made it the end and aim of his life to get it. He was at it in Egypt 36 centuries ago. He was at it in Rome when that Christian got persecuted by mistake for him. He has been at it ever since. The cost to him has been heavy. His success has made the whole human race his enemy. But it has paid, for it has brought him envy, and that is the only thing which men will sell both soul and body to get. He long ago observed that a millionaire commands respect, a 2-millionaire homage, a multimillionaire the deepest deeps of adoration. We all know that feeling. We have seen it express itself. We have noticed that when the average man mentions the name of a multimillionaire he does it with that mixture in his voice of awe and reverence and lust which burns in a Frenchman's eye when it falls on another man's centime. Point 4. The Jews have no party. They are non-participants. Perhaps you have let the secret out and given yourself away. It seems hardly a credit to the race that it is able to say that, or to you, sir, that you can say it without remorse. More, that you should offer it as a plea against maltreatment, injustice, and oppression. Who gives the Jew the right, who gives any race the right to sit still in a free country and let somebody else look after its safety? The oppressed Jew was entitled to all pity in the former times under brutal atrocities, for he was weak and friendless, and had no way to help his case. But he has ways now, and he has had them for a century, but I do not see that he has tried to make serious use of them. When the Revolution set him free in France it was an act of grace, the grace of other people. He does not appear in it as a helper. I do not know that he helped when England set him free. Among the 12 sane men of France who have stepped forward with great Zola at their head to fight, and win, I hope and believe, Note 3, the article was written in the summer of 1898, to fight the battle for the most infamously misused Jew of modern times, do you find a great or rich or illustrious Jew helping? In the United States he was created free in the beginning. He did not need to help, of course. In Austria and Germany and France he has a vote, but of what considerable use is it to him? He doesn't seem to know how to apply it to the best effect. With all his splendid capacities and all his fat wealth he is to-day not politically important in any country. In America, as early as 1854, the ignorant Irish hod-carrier, who had a spirit of his own and a way of exposing it to the weather, made it apparent to all that he must be politically reckoned with. Yet 15 years before that we hardly knew what an Irishman looked like. As an intelligent force and numerically he has always been away down, but he has governed the country just the same. It was because he was organized. It made his vote valuable, in fact, essential. You will say the Jew is everywhere numerically feeble. That is nothing to the point, with the Irishman's history for an object lesson. But I am coming to your numerical feebleness presently. In all parliamentary countries you could no doubt elect Jews to the legislature, and even one member in such a body is sometimes a force which counts. How deeply have you concerned yourselves about this in Austria, France, and Germany, or even in America for that matter? You remark that the Jews were not to blame for the riots in this Reichsrat here, and you add with satisfaction that there wasn't one in that body. That is not strictly correct. If it were, would it not be in order for you to explain it and apologize for it, not try to make a merit of it? But I think that the Jew was by no means in as large force there as he ought to have been, with his chances. Austria opens the suffrage to him on fairly liberal terms, and it must surely be his own fault that he is so much in the background politically. As to your numerical weakness, I mentioned some figures a while ago 500,000 as the Jewish population